The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Alone in the Realm, a premium solo TTRPG podcast. I'm DV, your humble GM and adventurer. Alone in the Realm is a podcast where we let the dice drive the story, and we are along for the ride. No characters beyond death, and we let the dice lay where they fall. We'll be playing Mothership by Tuesday Night Games, and the Mega Dungeon module, Gradient Descent, by Luke Gearing. Gradient Descent, Episode 17. In the last episode, the crew accompanied by Shadow, the elder of the forgotten androids, entered the labyrinth to find the Minotaur, only to discover it was waiting for them near the entrance. The Minotaur shared individual truths with the crew members, and tasked them with destroying an emitter in the throne of the chosen king within Eden. Then, the forgotten androids, led by Shadow, could assist with freeing the Minotaur from Monarch's control, and allow Ada to leave Floor 2. The chaos factor is 5, and the expected scene is deactivate the emitter in Eden. Now we'll test the scene with a D10. We got an 8, the expected scene. The crew will travel from the labyrinth to the sewer main, where there's a pipe in Eden. That will incur 6 encounter checks for the hour of traversal through the area. I'll roll all 6, but will only note it if we have an encounter. Okay, all 6 rolls complete, no encounters. Shadow left the crew to return to the gutter and begin the process of readying his android followers for the eventual effort to free the Minotaur. He had provided Denzel with assurance that by the time the emitter was deactivated, he'd be well on his way with his troops to help support the effort in Eden. And so, the crew traversed the pipe-laden areas from the labyrinth, back into the sewer main where they had originally encountered C-5414 and the dead android. Just as Shadow had indicated, there was a pipe with a loose grate in the upper left corner of the room. According to him, this would lead them into Eden.
Denzel, are you sure we should be doing this? We have what has most wanted. Let's just get out of here.
Ollie had a whine to his voice that belied his rough face. He sounded like a frightened child. Ada will be stuck here unless we do this. We can't just leave her behind. Denzel gave Ollie a flat-eyed stare and narrowed his eyes as Ollie opened his mouth as if to argue. Mythic, is Ollie going to try to stay behind here in the sewer main while they go into the Eden? 21, yes. Denzel turned back to the pipe entrance. It was several feet in the air, not easily accessible from the position here on the ground. Without any rope, they would be hard-pressed to get up there. Then he remembered the rigging gun they had found. Its weight on its back had just become another burden he carried. The electric charge on a hit would be wasted, but the cabling was more useful as a climbing mechanism at the current moment. He flung it from his back and aimed at the opening of the pipe. Hopefully, the harpoon would entangle in the grate covering the opening. He would then climb up, cut it open with his hand welder, and so he took careful aim and fired the weapon. The harpoon flew through the air with a slight buzz of electric charge. Okay, Denzel, fire with advantage since it's a stationary target, but you never know. Here we go. I got a 43, which is a fail, And a 47 versus a 40. Both were fail. +1 stress. His stress is now at 9. The harpoon hit the grate covering the pipe, but instead of getting lodged within, it clanked off disappointingly. Denzel cursed, his face growing hot with anger. Ada placed a hand on his arm. "Do not worry, Denzel. We can still try to throw the harpoon up and use it to climb." The heat left his face and he nodded in agreement. It was easier and easier for him to get angry lately. He really needed to take some time off after they got out of here. If they got out of here. I'm going to go ahead and let time pass as they try to make that throw. I'll do like a combat check, I guess, with Denzel. He will roll, and for each time that I fail, I'm not going to add stress, but I will let 10 minutes pass. So that's a fail. And that is a pass. So 20 minutes passed before he was able to get that harpoon to stick up there. Now I'll go ahead and roll an encounter check for both of those. 10-minute intervals. And I got no encounter for both of those. After several attempts by each of them, they finally threw the harpoon in such a way that it was firmly lodged in the grate above. Unfortunately, though, the coiled cable fell just short of their reach, the end dangling a few feet above their heads. Denzel could feel his temper rising once again. Ollie stepped forward.
"I'll just give each of you a boost, so you can grab the cord and climb up,"
he offered. "Yeah, but how will you get up?" Denzel said back. Ollie shrugged.
"I guess I'll just stay down here. I don't want to go in there anyway. Here, take the pulse rifle. I'll take your shotgun. I'll hide out. It'll be fine."
Denzel hated this idea. To be separated in this horrible place seemed like a recipe for disaster, but he really didn't see a choice. "Should you head back to the gutter? I think maybe it'll be safer there." Mythic fate check. Will Ollie agree to go back to the gutter? 83, no.
"Walk all that way by myself and then be trapped in there? No thanks. I believe Shadow when he said he'd be bringing his folks up to help, so I'll just hide out here until he arrives. I'll be fine, really."
Ollie tried to put on a reassuring smile, but it did not look genuine to Denzel. Mythic fate check. Does Ada offer to stay behind for safety in numbers? 22. Yes. 22 is also a random event. So I'm going to roll on a random event table. And I got a 39, an NPC action. Okay. Let's roll on our NPC table. I've got a long list of NPCs that we've encountered so far. It could be anybody at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate up these categories into four sections of 6 each. So I'm going to roll a d4, and that is a 2. All right, so from the second section, I'm going to roll a d6 in this second section, and I got a 2, which is Laurel Vias. She was one of the androids we discovered early in the season, I think it was episode 2, who pretended to be a human with a disease, and they were wearing vac suits. She and the others left in the tug ship that they had found on floor 6, but since she was an android, this is another iteration of her. So she believes she has the same backstory, same everything, only it's not the same person. But as far as she's concerned, she's never met the party, but the party believes they have met her. So this might be a little interesting. All right, what's her action? What is she doing? Ooh, hinder. Okay. Location. Hinder location. Oh, snap. Does she try to stop them from entering Eden? I got a 21, yes. After looking at Ollie for a long time, Denzel finally nodded and Therese traded her steel wool shotgun for Ollie's pulse rifle. Denzel allowed Ollie to give him a boost from his hands intertwined together to make a step. and he grasped at the hanging cable. It was not an easy climb up the narrow cable, but Denzel was able to reach the top. I'm going to roll a strength check just to see if he gains any stress from having to climb this. If he fails, he doesn't get anything except for stress. Like, there's not going to be any negative reactions as far as falling or anything like that. He's taking his time. So I got a 94 versus a 35. That's a fail. So +1 stress to Denzel. He's now at 10 stress. Wrapping the cabling around his leg to stabilize himself, he welded the harpoon into the pipe, then switched the tool to the cutting stream and cut open the grate. It fell to the ground below with a loud clatter that made the crew look around in alarm. The noise did not go unnoticed. From behind a set of pipes leading out of the room, a woman in a vac suit peeked out. She did not appear to be armed. Ada immediately saw her and raised her shotgun. "Come out of there! Who are you?" Ada commanded. Hearing the commotion, Denzel hurriedly climbed into the pipe, then laboriously turned around inside the cramped area until he could face the opening again. Therese, Ollie, and Ada all had their weapons trained on the woman as she approached with her hands raised in the air. Her vac suit was worn in places, and she had a horrible-looking rash on the skin of her face.
"Please, you have to help me. My name is Laurel Villas, and I've been trapped here in the station. I have a horrible disease that needs treatment, but as long as I wear this suit, you should be safe. Do you have a ship that can take us out of here?"
Ada looked up at Denzel in disbelief. They all recognized this same woman they had met previously in engineering. Only that time, she was accompanied by others with the same story. Ada looked back at Laurel. "We have met you before. You left with the others in your party. How did you come to be here again?"
"What? No, you must be mistaking me for someone else. Please, there is no time. We have to get out of here,"
the woman Laurel pleaded. Mythic fate check. Does Ollie believe her? Very unlikely. 21 versus 25. Yes, he does believe her. Oh, Ollie. Always a sucker for the ladies. Ollie lowered his weapon first and approached her.
"Don't worry. We are about to leave. I'll stay here with you until my companions can finish their task. Then we can all leave together. I can take a look at your sores if you want. Maybe I can ease the symptoms. Do you know what you have?" No, I mustn't remove my suit. It will put you at risk. Thank you for offering, though. I'll wait here with you if that is okay."
She looked to the other crew members with wide, innocent eyes. "I do not like this," Ada said simply. Therese moved over to the woman, opened her tools, and pulled out a zip tie.
"Here, let me bind your hands, just in case you're not telling the truth."
"What?
"Why?"
the woman stammered. "Why? Because we don't think you are who you say you are," Denzel called from above. Ollie looked from Therese to Denzel in confusion. "Why would we not believe her? She's sick. Obviously, it's affected her memory."
"How did she get back in the station, Ollie?"
Denzel yelled down. Ollie shrugged, but he seemed intent on keeping the woman safe. Denzel wondered if the man's head injury had affected him more than they realized. "She can stay, but Teresa's right. She must allow us to bind her hands at least," Denzel finally said. Ollie conceded, and Therese bound the woman's hands with a zip tie. She looked even more scared now that she was bound, but Ollie helped guide her to a sitting position on one of the lower pipes. Denzel shook his head. This would not end well, he just knew it. "Okay. Ada, Therese, both of you, get up here. Ollie, watch her." Ollie nodded, but Denzel had a bad feeling when they left. He was going to cut her loose.
"Please, don't go into Eden. You won't like what you find there,"
Laurel pleaded.
"What will we find there?"
Ada asked.
I don't know how to explain it. It's a weird place. Everyone's crazy there.
Ada looked at Laurel for a few moments, then shrugged. Everyone is crazy in this whole station. Now I'm going to make a strength check for Ada to see if she climbs without any stress. She got a 36 versus a 42. That's a success. Now we'll get a Tree's strength check for the climb. See if she gets any stress. She got a 69, nice, versus 41. That's a fail. Plus 1 stress. She's now at 10 stress. With Ollie's help, Ada and Treese both made the strenuous climb into the pipe. Treese was panting for breath when she finally pulled herself up. They barely had any room for them to maneuver as the three of them proceeded to climb through the pipe until they came to a blockage of filth. It reeked of a somewhat unfamiliar, acrid smell. Not human waste, something else. Denzel sighed and began to cut the blockage with his hand welder. As the laser pierced the outside of the blockage, a cat-sized robotic spider emerged from within. It seemed he had built the blockage mass out of synthetic android, bone, and flesh. Denzel make a speed check to react. He got a 22, a critical success. Nice. He's going to attack with advantage. Alright, now I'm going to attack the spider with my hand welder with advantage. 53, that's a fail. And an 82, which is another fail. So he gets a plus 1 stress. That's an 11 stress. The spider now will attack back. He's just going to get an auto hit because there's pretty much no way he could miss at this point. Spider attacks with 2d10. I mean, Denzel can't avoid, and the spider is like right on top of him. There's no reason why the spider would miss. So we'll just let him roll damage. See what happens. So he gets a 2d10 damage. Got an 8 minus Denzel's 1 armor from his suit. His workwear, which is now ruined. So he got 7 damage. Wow. That puts Denzel at 4 out of 11 hit points. Denzel let out a shout as the thing scurried forward and tried to blast it with the welder. It maneuvered up the wall of the pipe, then dropped onto Denzel's arm, cutting into his flesh with the surgical tools that replaced his mouth palps. Denzel grabbed at it, trying to pull it off of his arm. Tree screamed from behind him, asking what was going on. He was too busy fighting to answer. Denzel used a speed check to try to pull it off before he can attack again. So I'm going to roll to see basically who gets to attack first, Denzel or the spider. Ooh. I got a 43 versus a 40. That's a fail on the speed check. Plus 1 stress. He's now at 12 stress. So the spider gets to attack. He is going to roll a 23 versus a 30. That's a hit. 2d10 damage. Oh no! 11 damage! That gives Denzel 1 wound and puts Denzel back at 4 out of 11 hit points as well. Now I have to roll on the wound table. Oh, come on, Denzel. I got a 3, which is a laceration. He gets bleeding plus 1, which means he'll lose 1 hit point every turn. Not great. As his hand neared the spider, it looked toward the moving part and leaped upon it, surgical tools ripping into his palm. Blood poured from the open wound, and Denzel gave another cry of pain. His other crewmates behind him were powerless to help. They both began backing up. Ada grabbed his foot and gave it a strong yank to pull him with them. I'm going to roll a strength check with Ada to see if she can pull him away from the spider. That is a 2. That's a success. Awesome. The strong tug allowed Denzel some distance from the spider droid, and he took careful aim once again with his hand welder, hoping to finish off the thing before it could latch himself onto him again. So now I'm going to roll an attack with Denzel. That is a 31 versus a 50. That's a success. The droid does not have any hit points, only wounds, so that's 1 of his wounds out of 2. And I'll do 1 hit point from Denzel from his bleeding. That's 3 out of 11. Mythic. Fate check. Does the spider try to withdraw after taking this first wound? That's an 18. That's a yes. The welder beam struck the spider droid's underbelly and it flipped end over end down the pipe. It wobbled to its 8 feet and scurried back behind the blockage. Denzel thrust his hand backward so that Ada could apply a bandage while he kept his other hand aiming the welder down the pipe.
Put a bandage on this! There's some sort of spider thing down here. Bit the shit out of me, Denzel shouted.
Ada hurriedly opened her medkit and applied the bandage.
This looks severe. Should we go back? She asked with a concern. How can we? You'd be trapped here, he shouted, and he blasted the blockage again with his welder.
Mythic fate check. Is the spider still behind the blockage? That's a 19, I guess. The debris flew away under the blast, and the spider thing crab walked sideways, raising its surgical tool pops in defiance.
Down, we'll let Denzel attack.
Come on, Denzel, kill that piece of crap. That's a 34 versus a 50. That's a success. The spider is killed. Determined not to let the thing get close again, he swept the laser welder across the body of the flexing spider drone, cutting it succinctly in 2. He cursed again for good measure.
I got the damn thing. Hopefully that was the only one around. Nasty little bugger.
He shook his wounded hand, the pain throbbing with every heartbeat. Ollie was shouting from below, asking what was going on. Therese called back to fill him in. The rest of the climb through the pipe was uneventful, and they could soon see the opposite opening lighting the way ahead. Half covering the opening in the pipe was a thin skein of pseudo-flesh. Denzel frowned in disgust as he cut through the skin with his hand welder. Then he pushed open the grate. It opened into a large room with pseudo-flesh covering every surface, except for 2 bulkhead doors and a regular office door. The office door had a faded sign, Exhibition Hall. In the center of the room, a statue, also made of pseudo-flesh, stood. An adult figure, completely featureless, but wearing a corporate suit, held the hand of a child-sized figure, naked and also featureless.
What the holy shit is this?
Denzel said as he emerged. The 2 women emerged behind him. Therese gasped at the sight. Ada stood, her face unreadable. Now I'll make a sanity save for everyone. Denzel. That's a 7. That's a save. Ada save. She got a 66, which is versus a 21, a critical fail. So she gets +1 stress. That's 8 stress. Now she also has to make a panic save. With panic saves, it's a d20. You have to roll over your current stress. She's going to roll d20. She got a 10 versus her current stress of 8. No panic. Therese, make your sanity save. She got a 49 versus a 36. That's a fail. +1 stress. She's now at 11 stress.
Denzel, I believed I had once been human. I thought Monarch, or someone, had implanted my human consciousness into this android form.
Ada suddenly said out of nowhere, her eyes unfocused. Denzel looked in confusion from the statues to Ada.
What?
I found this photograph, or rather, Ollie did. I thought it was me as a child. She handed over the image to Denzel. The figure in the photograph was posed, just like the statues. An adult wearing a suit holding the hand of a child. Only the child was a little girl, and the adult a man. A woman stood to the side of the man, and they were posing in front of some monument. Why would you think this is you, though? Denzel scratched his head, then regretted it as pain shot through the wounded hand. Ada did not answer for a moment. She only stood there staring at the statues. Finally, she said quietly, I think Monarch is toying with our minds in here, making us see and think things that are not real. I do not know how, but I believe it is true. The Minotaur hinted to the same thing. Denzel thought back to the tooth he had found, and how he had been sure it was his own, and then the mention of them in the sci-fi novel he had found. He nodded grimly. I know exactly what you mean. I'm sick of this place. Come on, let's get this over with. And he walked over to the office door. Mythic Vaycheck, do any of the doors have windows? 40, that's a yes. The exhibition hall door does. There was a dirty window set inside the door, and Denzel wiped at it with his sleeve. He was unprepared for what he saw inside. It was a huge room, strung about with jury-rigged lighting. Dozens of 30-meter tall pillars of pseudo-flesh stood interspersed within the area. Inset in the pillars were tight sphincter openings. As he peered inside, he saw androids moving in and out of the sphincters. When they would open, white pseudo-milk would ooze out along with the naked, crawling android. They would then dry themselves with a hanging towel and don a set of new Cloudbank coveralls. Bizarrely, or compared to the flesh pillars, perhaps not that bizarre, all of the androids looked like individuals. They all had different facial features. There were thin androids, overweight, dark-skinned, light-skinned, hairy, smooth, young, old, androids as varied as the human race. Some of them even had unnatural proportions, as if they had undergone plastic surgery. Enlarged breasts on the female variants, unusually sized lips, tight faces. Some of the males had exceptionally large genitalia, bulging muscles, long hair, and short. It was a sight unlike any Denzel had ever seen. He realized he was blushing, and he resisted the urge to avert his eyes. He had never really been comfortable with nudity. Before he could say anything, though, one of the men, now clothed, opened the door. He had not seen him approaching from the side. At the sight of the three of them, the android startled. Now I'm going to roll a reaction roll for this encounter. I got a 1. It's a very low roll, so he's much weaker than the crew, and it's odd, indicating it's a negative reaction. He held his hand to his throat in shock and started to back away. Before he could cry out in alarm, Denzel reached out to grab him and keep him from shouting. Denzel, make a speed check. 73 versus a 40, that's a fail. Plus 1 stress. That is 13 stress. Denzel grasped his arm, but it was too late.
Oh, help! Help! There are humans inside Eden!
He cried out. End of scene. The chaos factor rises to a 6. We did not achieve our goal in this scene due to the random events, but I think it was a good scene regardless. We'll keep our expected scene thread for the next time, which is to disable the emitter. Today's episode featured the guest voice of Jared from Roll, Ponder, and Play. I want to thank Jared for contributing to my humble little podcast. If you want to check out the Roll, Ponder, and Play podcast, you can find it and other excellent solo RPG podcasts at soloroleplayersnetwork.com. If you want to help support the show, consider leaving a like and a comment, as that really helps the algorithm. Consider sharing the link on your favorite social media.